Do you want to know how to teach social skills to teenagers? Well, you're not alone. That's a really common question right now. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I am a parenting expert. I teach relationships, communication, and self-government to families all over the world. And in this video, we're talking about social skills and teenagers. When it comes to social skills, there are some things you should avoid and some things you should do. And some of those things might surprise you. Be sure to stay with me to the end because I think some of the things I'm going to share with you at the end of this video might actually be a little bit of a shocker. I was a really social person growing up. In fact, I was one of those little girls that could talk to anybody. I had no problem talking to adults or other children. In fact, I wasn't alone like this. I remember being part of youth groups at church and in the community where adults and children were talking together all the time. But as I look around me now, I don't see the same type of behavior. Have you noticed that a lot of children are looking down instead of looking in people's eyes? Many young people are not possessing basic social skills that even allow them to carry on just an everyday conversation. Parents will ask me regularly, Nicholeen, how do I break down the walls between me and my children? In fact, so often I ask them, how was your school today? And they say, fine. Well, what happened in this class today? I don't know, same old. And they just don't discuss a lot with me. Why is there such a barrier, and how can I break down that barrier? So that's not all I'm asked about teenagers. In fact, the questions are wide and varied. But another main question that gets asked to me on a regular basis is, how do I help my child prepare socially for adulthood? People know that if you have good social skills, it actually gives you an edge up in the world. In fact, good social skills are part of what is called practical intelligence. So how do we increase the practical intelligence in our children? How do we create the type of environment where they can succeed, even thrive in their relationships and in their communications? Because if they have those skills, it has been proven that they will land more jobs than if they're just smart. Isn't it funny that as parents, we spend so much time worrying about grades and academic achievement when in reality, the thing that lands them their dream job, the thing they want to do for the rest of their life is actually their personality and their ability to get along with others? Well, it is. I know I've been on the hiring side of the table and I do know what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody they want to play golf with, someone that they want to talk to just over a lunch, not just someone who gets the job done. So how do we help our children become that type of person? Well, it starts when they're young, but definitely by the time they're in their teen years, we need to be putting a heavy focus on what is proper social development. And some of my answers of what is proper and how to go about it may actually surprise you. First, we need to discuss what to avoid. So we live in this digital age. I mean, it's all around us. It's everywhere. In fact, I don't know how a family can exist nowadays and stay in touch with each other without some sort of digital devices. But this presents problems. It creates a type of difficulty that parents in previous generations have not had to deal with. So their children are preoccupied with the world that's in their pocket all the time. So what do you do about that? A wise parent knows that they have to limit screen time. You just have to. There was a time when people maybe thought that we'd just adapt to having screens into everything, but study after study is showing that screen time and the brain, especially the adolescent brain, is not a good combination. So what we need to do is we need to set limits for those screens. We need to decide that the screens for sure are not going to live at night in our children's rooms. That's important. They need to get some good rest and put away all of that kind of social stuff in the evenings. But also there need to be just certain times of the day where we check on social media and stuff like that, but not have it be an ongoing thing that's happening all the time. I know that's easier said than done. When we have children that are in their teens, they want to keep up with their friends and that's important to them. But we need to remember that having friends is not how we develop social skills. It's where we practice them. Do you got that? Friends are where we practice social skills, not where we develop them. So if the friends and the social media are getting in the way of your child having good communication with you, then they're probably not going to be learning the social skills that they need. So what we need to do is we need to decide maybe that 1 hour or half hour of the day or the evening where they get to check up on all that kind of stuff, and the rest of the time they put it away. For sure at meal times, no phones or things out at meal times. I know that's so hard to accept, especially in the busy lives that we have. Even the adults are pulling out their phones at meal times because they've got work and pressures and things that they're dealing with. But don't do it. Have self-government. Tell yourself no, that you do not want to jeopardize this vital time that you have with your teens. They're almost gone from your home. They need the time to bond with you. Why do they need the time to bond with you? Because you are the best social teacher. Now that means you've got to be examining your own social skills on a regular basis. How are you doing with your social skills? Do you talk to people? Do you call people and have regular conversations? When you're at a store, do you stop and talk to another person? Do you introduce your children to people they may not have met before? Well, all of those things are good social skills, and you are the one that sets the example for that type of social conduct in the future. So make sure that your children see you living a proper social life, which means when you're in the car, talk. When you're around the table, talk. Go on a walk together. Do things together where you can have a time to discuss and bond together. You are the social teacher. Now, when my children hit about age 11, I take a special interest in their social development. In fact, I know that the girls need to learn what it means to become a woman. Not a teenager, a woman. I want them to see past those teenage years to who they're becoming long term. The same thing goes for the boys. Once the boys hit 11 years old, they need to have a vision of what it means to become a man. So one thing that me and my husband have decided to do is when they hit 11 years old, we take special time with them on a weekly basis. So my husband started singing barbershop with my son because that was something that my son had expressed an extreme interest in. Even though my husband didn't have the same interest, he took the time to talk to my son as they went to and from their barbershop chorus and their barbershop quartet practices. They also spent time working on a project together, traveling together, and developing a bond that still exists in its strength today. Now that my son is in his 20s, you would not think that he ever had a time where he disconnected from his parents. And that's because he didn't. You heard me right. My children have never been disconnected from me. I've had 4 children. My youngest is now 17, and he loves me, and he hugs me, and he comes and finds me, and gives me hugs and kisses, and talks to me. That is the best parts of our day. And all of my children have been that way. They don't disconnect from me, even if they're busy with work and school teams and all the different things that they're doing with their academics and their personal life. The time with mom, the time with dad, the time with family is always number one priority. Now that's a cultural decision that we decided to have as a family when the children were really young. We decided that our family culture was always going to be more important than the friend culture. So we put higher priority on that and said no to friend time on a regular basis. As time went on, they were able to have a little bit more social time outside with friends, but we wanted to make sure that we laid the social foundation first so that they would always know who they are, where they came from, how to behave when they're with other people, how to value other people, and how to not be railroaded by some other people's way of living. These were things that we did for our children in a proactive way to prepare them for their future social practices. Before I get to the bits that might surprise you, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and be sure to subscribe because I come up with videos like this every single day of the week, and I know that there's going to be some you're not going to want to miss. Subscribe now. So about that family culture that we're creating. This family culture involved a really happy nightlife. A nightlife where we played games together, where we read stories together, we did activities together, we'd play badminton and croquet in the backyard, play basketball together as a family, play pickleball, that's one of our new favorites. So we do things together as a family. That's part of who we are. When you engage in activities like that with your children, that creates great social skills for the children. They learn how to talk about things, how to let loose and bond and be themselves. Another thing that we do that helps our children that might surprise you is correcting them. We correct them on a regular basis when things need correcting. Obviously, we don't just invent stuff to correct, but we notice they need some adjustment here. We're going to correct, and we teach them how to have a calm correction. These are skills they are going to need in all their relationships. They're going to need to know how to accept a consequence and a correction when things don't go right. They're going to need to know how to accept a no answer when someone tells them no. And they're going to need to know how to be heard in a way that's respectful, which we call disagreeing appropriately. We teach them these skills and we correct them when things go wrong so they get the opportunity to do them right. Correcting children prepares them to have good social success. Does that surprise you a little bit? Because it's absolutely true. Here's another one that might surprise you. Did you know that your children actually need less social time when they're in their teenage years than they did when they were, say, 10 or 11? It's true. In fact, for my children, I decided that I would gauge what their developmental need was socially and that we would make sure that they got those developmental needs met so that they could have the appropriate practice time, but they could also make sure that they didn't sever any ties with family. What I realized as I was examining developmental needs of children was that when children are very young, they need to be near their parents all the time. That's their greatest social advantage because as they walk and talk with mom and dad and engage in all the different components of their lives as parents take them along with them, then those children learn not only how to solve problems in life, but how to interact with people in a way that is really healthy and will help them have good communication skills in the future. As the children get a little bit older, they need to start practicing some of these skills they've been learning from mom and dad. So having play dates and friend times and having a little bit more social interaction is definitely appropriate. But once our children hit a really heavy scholar phase, academic phase, where they maybe have a job or maybe they're just putting a lot more time in on their studies, then we noticed that it actually hurts our children in many other aspects of their life if they have too much social. Many people think that during the teenage years, that's the time where they should do whatever they want because soon comes adulthood and all the responsibilities. But what I've noticed is that that type of mindset is actually detrimental to teenagers. In fact, they think that adulthood is something to be feared, and they think that this time is not really worth anything in their lives except for having fun, which is not true. So then they end up wasting some of the most crucial years of their lives to prepare for successful adulthood. So in our family, we decided that as they got older into those teen years, that we would actually step away from some of the social time so that they could have increased family time, increased study time, time for work and hobbies, some of these other things that they would need to work on in order to prepare for who they were becoming in their adult life. Now that doesn't mean they don't have any social time, because they certainly do. They go on dates and hang out with friends and do all of the things that normal teenage children do. The thing is, they're just not doing it every single day, all the time. That's not the only thing that they're focusing on. And they're not on social media, because we don't do social media in our family until the children are 18. Then they can get social media if they want to on their own devices. We don't even actually give them their own smartphones until they're 18 as well. We just have a little flip phone for the kids. And I know that seems archaic, but why? They don't need it, especially because they can still text everybody and take a picture, and that's really all they need so that they're not distracted all the time. That may seem a little surprising. Many people think that during those teen years they need to just play. Well, hopefully they've been playing all along. Hopefully you didn't stress them out when they were 6 so that they can have no responsibility when they're 16. Hopefully they played when they were 6 so that they can take that responsibility when they're 16 to become a good adult. Do you want your teenager to launch into adulthood? I hope the answer is yes. For them to confidently launch into adulthood, they need more weight and more responsibilities during those teenage years. That is proper social development. Like I said, it might surprise you. If you've enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you'll like my next video, which is how to stop kids from whining. Click on that link now and I'll see you there.